Yes, hello?
Oh yeah, I was hoping to put in an order to pick up.
All right, what's that order going to be?
Yeah, I was gonna get an order of cooked shrimp.
Sir, this is a Home Depot? We're a warehouse store. We don't sell shrimp. Hello? Hello?
What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So thankfully, a nice, comfortable win, and it was very needed. And granted, this is not a super difficult game. You're playing against a League Two side, and not just a League Two side, the worst League Two side at the moment. At home, it's going to be a fairly simple game if you can get your job done. And to be fair, first half, a little shaky. Definitely some moments it felt like maybe we were going to be under pressure. Maybe it was going to be tough for us to get the job done, but we do have enough quality on the pitch. We did manage to find our way through and had a nice, comfortable 5-0 win. And it's coming at a good time because obviously I didn't do a review on the Palace game, but we've had 4 without a win. We've only scored 2 goals in those 4 games. We've only had 2 points in those 4 games. We're looking like our top 4 position is in danger. This was a much needed win. I know it should be an easy game, but there's a lot of confidence issues right now. I think especially with January here, we're looking at who can we bring in, we're looking at who can we get rid of. This was kind of a game for some of these guys to show what can they bring to the team, what value do they have, and again, lift the spirits a little bit because the confidence is a little bit low. So first of all, starting with Maresca, I will say some of his decisions are definitely very telling. First of all, we see there's no Dewsbury Hall or Chukwuemeka, and obviously we've not seen Chilwell all season, but also no Cassidy. So there are a few guys there that have been within the periphery of the second team and maybe possibly stepping into the first team if needed. None of them are on even the bench, which tells me, because obviously Cassidy has been linked away, Chukwuemeka has been linked away. Dewsbury Hall, sounds like we're trying to sell him or loan him out. So the fact that they're not even on the bench today sort of does show that they're probably going to be leaving this January. But also his bench is very strong today. If you think about the game in Kazakhstan, he had pretty much nothing but youngsters on the bench. He didn't have any first team options. Today, it was still mostly a second team on the field, but with a lot of first team options coming off the bench. So it definitely shows this was a little bit more important. This was a little bit more of we need to have these guys ready as an option in case that extra bit of quality is needed, which does sort of show that the FA Cup is possibly a competition that we are taking very seriously. Not that we're not trying to win the Conference League, but I do think looking at some of the teams we're playing there, it sort of shows whenever a lot of our players coming off the bench are youngsters, it does feel like maybe we're not worried about committing as many first team players to that competition as we would be for the FA Cup. But also another decision in the starting lineup. He's got Tosin on the starting lineup today over Achimpong, which tells me that Achimpong is probably going to start against Bournemouth, which is very interesting. I mean, obviously he played pretty well against Palace, but to go ahead and start trusting him as a starting Premier League defender over Tosin, who's been solid and is a bit more experienced, it does show that maybe Achimpong's starting to play himself into that first team. And I mean, like I said, he played well against Palace, but I do worry a little bit about that lack of experience, the lack of leadership in the back without Tosin there. But outside of that, the only other interesting thing to talk about is no Madueke again today. And I heard that apparently there's been some issues with him behind the scenes. There was a game I think it was a few weeks ago where he wasn't even on the bench. And the reports were that apparently Maresca has like a 3-strike system, and Madueke had hit his 3 strikes, and his third one was like turning up late to a team meeting. So the fact that he's once again not on the bench today does sort of make me wonder what's going on there. You know, what issue is he having? Is it an attitude issue still? Is there something going on in trading that we don't know about? But clearly, with him not even being on the bench, it seems like he's been dropped again. And for him, it's not a good sign because he's just not been very consistent this season. And I think that lack of consistency mixed with the fact that now he's starting to miss games because of some issue behind the scenes, it does make me feel like it's probably going to be a problem going forward. And I don't really expect him to really feature that much for us from here on out. I don't know if they're going to sell him in January or maybe in the summer, but it definitely feels like he's slowly moving down in the pecking order. But the subs are kind of what you'd expect. You've got James and Lavia managing minutes, so they get 45. And then Neto obviously is going to play against Bournemouth, as is Sancho, so you give each of them 45 minutes to not wear their legs out for Tuesday. But outside of that, there's really not much else to talk about with Maresca. This was kind of an easy game for him to manage, but I have been worried about him recently. He's not been really making good subs, or hardly any subs. And I talked about in the Ipswich quick review, there's that concern of a repeat of Potter, where you've got this young manager coming into a big club for the first time. And I know he worked for Pep. I know he worked at the Man City and all of that stuff. So it's not like he's Graham Potter coming from absolutely nothing and in Brighton to Chelsea, but it's still, this is his first big management job as the head manager. And that pressure can get to you. And it does feel like over the past few games, the pressure started to pile on, and he's not really had much of an answer for it. So there is that concern that we're going to start slipping here soon. Hopefully this is a nice confidence booster that we can sort of get things turned back around, and we can start to pick up points here to keep our top 4 position intact. But going into individuals, which typically in games like these are kind of difficult to really talk about, because as I've mentioned in the past, anytime you face a lower side, it can always be tough to really say, oh, this guy looked phenomenal today and this guy looked bad today, because you're playing against lower opposition. So sometimes it's easy to look good against teams like that. With that in mind, starting in the back for Jorgensen, I got to say, this probably kills his chances of starting over Sanchez this year. I know a lot of people have been calling for it for a while. In my opinion, the reason why he's been not starting over Sanchez is because Maresca wants that experience from Sanchez, the keeper who's played in the Premier League. He doesn't want to pile a ton of pressure onto Jorgensen and cause him to slip up, and now all of a sudden our young keeper is struggling for confidence. And Sanchez has been a really good shot stopper. Obviously, his passing is awful, is atrocious, and because we tend to play out of the back, that can leave us very vulnerable. But his shot stopping's been phenomenal, and I think that's where we've needed a keeper to just be comfortable making saves, at least, to keep us in games. But for Jorgensen today, I mean, his feet looked fine. It looked like he was making some good passes. He did have one really bad one late in the second half, but that was also after his confidence seemed like it was absolutely in the mud. Because his saves today, his collecting, his commanding of his box, I don't know what was going on, but he looked nothing like what we've seen from him so far this season. He looked devoid of confidence today. I don't know why, but from the outset today, I mean, they break down the right side pretty early on, have a shot that's basically right at him, and all he has to do is just collect it. It's not a hard one for keepers to take, and it just slips right through his arms, and now all of a sudden he has to go pick it up. But from that moment on, it kind of felt like that was going to be Jorgensen's game, and it carried on through the entire match. So this definitely shoots himself in the foot as far as trying to push Sanchez out of the first team spot. I still do think we need to just get a better keeper in general in there. We don't need to try to be building these keepers up from a young age, because we need somebody now. If we truly want to be challenging for the title next season, we need an experienced keeper now that's going to hold down that spot, be comfortable making saves, be comfortable with his feet, playing in Maresca's system, while in the meantime you're building up keepers like Jorgensen to get them ready in maybe a few years after our starting keeper is finally getting too old for it. But moving on into defense, we have James starting on the right side, and for the most part was okay. It had a couple of moments where it felt like you could see the rustiness was there. You could see he wasn't really up to fitness because it was a little too easy to run at him. And I still do feel like there's this lack of intensity with his play sometimes that can put him in trouble. I know some of that is style of play. I see it from his sister as well at the women's team. There's this sort of lackadaisical look about it, but they have enough quality to keep the ball and keep it moving. But at times, whenever you're under high pressure and you need to play it quicker, that style doesn't really help us. We need players who are going to play with urgency, who are going to get rid of the ball quicker. Didn't really hurt us today, but there were a couple times where I saw if there was a little bit more quality up front from Morecambe, probably could have put us under pressure with James back there. Moving on to Tosin, obviously he got himself a couple of goals, but defensively could have done a little bit better. I feel like there are times whenever that experience that he has should be kicking in, and it just doesn't look like he's reading the play very well. So I don't know why that is, because typically you would expect, he's 26, so should be starting to hit the prime of his defensive years, and I don't see that from him. I don't see that Thiago Silva-esque reading of the play and putting himself in a good position. And not every defender plays like that, but if you're not going to play like that, then you need to be more of a Van Dijk type of defender where you're just so fast and strong that, okay, you don't read the play very well, but you can make up for it, kind of what we had with Rudiger. But I don't see that from him either. He doesn't really have a whole lot of pace. He's strong and he's tall, but players can run past him pretty easily. There are just some moments, there's one in particular where it felt like very similar to the goal we gave up that lost the game against Fulham. He's way behind everybody else in defense, and so now he's keeping players onside. Saw a couple of moments that it looked like that was going to be a danger here as well. So I don't know why that is. I don't know what's going on with him, but it feels like there's just a lack of awareness from him sometimes, and considering he is one of our more experienced defenders, that is a concern. Disasi was kind of his typical self, had his moments where, he's very energetic, he works very hard, but the quality is not there. And especially in the box on corners, that's where we've seen him be pretty effective over the past couple of years that we've had him. Today, it wasn't there. I mean, several moments where he should be at least putting it on target, and he didn't. I don't expect him to be out this January, but I would like him to be, and I'd love us to get Chalobah back. I don't know if that's possible with his loan deal. I don't know all the details of it. I know obviously we're looking at Guéhi, and I don't really rate Guéhi that highly. I think he's okay. He would be better than Disasi, I guess. But we should be looking not just better than Disasi. We should be looking for close to like the Colwill levels. And I think Chalobah's got that type of quality. I think he can potentially be there. Ultimately, we do need just more experience back there, but that's an entirely different conversation. On the left side, Vega, I think today kind of showed that defensive frailty that he has, it can be exploited. He's done pretty well in the Conference League because he hasn't been required to do a lot of the defensive work. Most of the time, he is inverting into the midfield, and all he has to do is just get on the ball and make passes happen. And he did that today a couple of times, and it looked pretty good when he did. But defensively, we needed him to step up in some moments in the first half, and he didn't. And they were able to get good crosses in or good shots in that thankfully we managed to deal with in the middle, or they just didn't have the quality to finish it. But yeah, that left side looked very vulnerable whenever Vega was back there in the first half. And that's something he's got to improve if he wants to possibly break into that first team picture anytime soon. Lavia in the midfield looked okay. Definitely also looked like he was lacking that fitness that he needs, but he looked fine. I think on the ball maybe could have been a little bit better, but defensively I thought he held his own in there pretty well. Wasn't really required to do too much, to be fair. On the right side, starting with Neto, he did okay. I know a lot of people have been calling him out recently because of the lack of goals and assists that he's had this season, and I do understand that because we've lacked goals in the past few games, obviously. But I still think he's very good at working back. He works hard on the ball. He likes to take on defenders and cause trouble for them. So yeah, his quality does need to improve, but so does everybody else's, to be fair. Like, we've been lacking goals all over the pitch, not just with Neto. I know he is a scapegoat because his numbers have been pretty poor throughout the season and not just recently. But I think his work rate is something that causes trouble on that right-hand side. If you've got a team that likes to push their fullbacks forward, they can't really with Neto there because he's very good at getting in behind. So I do think that while I would like to see a little bit more from him in the final third, I do appreciate what he's been doing, the work he's been putting in. And I don't think that's something that should be scoffed at just because, his numbers this season aren't really that good. In the middle, he went for 2 10s today with Felix and Nkuku, and I thought that worked pretty well. I think Nkuku probably should have done a bit better today. I do feel like watching him today, it kind of does feel he doesn't fit what Maresca tries to do. I don't feel like he fits that sort of system where there's a lot of energy and work rate and high press from your attacking line. I don't see that from him. On the ball, he is pretty solid. He typically has a good touch. Could do a little bit better, to be fair. When you look at how many chances he does get, obviously the penalty was really poorly taken. Yes, the keeper steps off his line before, and he's about a good yard off his line. It's not a good penalty. It's at the perfect height for keepers to make the save. It's not down low. It's hit with pace, but it's not that great of a penalty. And he is supposed to be our second penalty taker after Palmer. There's definitely a lack of confidence with him, but I also do feel like the quality from him has just dropped off as the season has gone on. Some of that maybe has to do with the fact that he's not playing enough, and maybe that is in his head. But these are the moments where you should be stepping up and showing why you should be playing more. And I don't feel like he takes these opportunities enough throughout the season. Felix, good that he got the 2 goals in the second half, because in the first half, he was by far our most dangerous player, but just had no quality in the final third, no quality when it came to the finish. That's a problem, obviously, and it's been a problem for him before, where he is working so hard, he's constantly in these good positions, he's looking like our most likely to score, but also our least likely to score when you look at how bad his finishing can be at times. So it was good for him to get 2 goals in the second half and hopefully boost that confidence a little bit. And I also hope that boosts Maresca's confidence in him, because we've needed him to come off the bench in the last few games, and he just hasn't been trusting him for some reason. So hopefully these goals will give confidence to Maresca to pick him, especially whenever we need that little bit of extra energy in there, because he provides so much energy in the final third when it comes to pressing, when it comes to working off the ball and getting into spaces and causing the defense to have to move to track him. And then George on the left side, another good performance from him. Still lacking that finishing quality, but he's doing everything up until the finish correctly. He's moving really well. He's taking on defenders. He's getting himself into good space too, so defenders have to keep track of him and they can't just sort of leave him out there. Unfortunately, he just can't find that final pass or that really well-placed shot to cap what has been a really good run up to that point. So obviously, he's young, so he can get there, but I do think he's still a little bit away from breaking into that first team because of that lack of quality when it comes to the finish. And then Guillou up top, I thought this was a good chance for him to show why picking him as the second striker is a viable option. But unfortunately, what we saw today was it's not. He's still not there. He's still not the finished product. Had a couple of decent moments here and there, but when you look at his overall performance, it's kind of non-existent for the most part. I don't really remember seeing much from him throughout the match. Just one good moment with a ball in behind where he has a decent shot that hits the side netting, and then another couple of moments where he put good pressure on and won the ball back, but then didn't really do much with it. So I do think more than likely we'll be getting a second striker in to help Jackson in this January transfer window, because we still can't rely on Guillou to comfortably get the job done whenever Jackson's not firing. And then as far as the subs that came on, Cucurella came on, was his usual busy self. No real complaints there for him. Gusto looked okay today, wasn't really put under too much pressure, but I still do think needs to be a little bit more quality from him on the ball, because he's shown he has that quality in the past. This year, though, it's just not been good enough. And then Sancho came on for Neto, and it looked okay, took on some defenders, looked pretty dangerous. Probably could have gotten himself a goal or two if he had been a little bit more confident to shoot, but overall, it was fine. But with that out of the way, we obviously have Bournemouth coming up, which is going to be a difficult game. They're in a good run of form, and our league form recently has really dropped off, so we need to get a win here to get ourselves back on track for what we're hoping to do, which is finish top 4 this year. But with all that being said, those are my thoughts on the game today. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a ton of reviews on there, as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.